Today, the Baltimore Ravens are celebrating the 30th anniversary of that time the Browns moved to Baltimore and changed their name to the Ravens. But how did they even get into that situation, anyways? The story starts back in the 1960s. At the time, Baltimore had a team called the Baltimore Colts, and they were one of the most beloved teams in the NFL. But as early as 1969, ownership began to complain about their stadium, which they share with the Orioles, Baltimore Memorial Stadium. The seats were old, rickety, and uncomfortable. The bathrooms weren't suited for large crowds. The parking was terrible, and the views of the game weren't even that good. It was so bad that Colts owner Carroll Rosenblum traded ownership of the Colts to a guy named Bob Irsay in exchange for ownership of the Los Angeles Rams. Irsay was a more patient man, and in 1972, Baltimore put out plans to create the Balto Dome. The Balto Dome would be able to host both football and baseball, as well as basketball, hockey, and other sports if Baltimore ever got them. However, city comptroller and notorious funny name haver Hyman Pressman was able to add an amendment to the city's charter that said no public funds could be used to build the Balto Dome. This effectively killed off the Balto Dome and halted any further construction of a new stadium, while Memorial Stadium continued to wither away. By the late 70s and early 1980s, Bob Irsay had been both secretly and publicly flirting with cities like Phoenix, Jacksonville, Birmingham, and Indianapolis as places to potentially move the Colts to. Irsay was constantly getting hounded by the press about potentially moving Baltimore's beloved Colts. So on January 20th, 1984, Irsay stated,
"I have not any intention of moving the team. If I did, I will tell you about it, okay?"
But on March 2nd, 1984, the NFL owners gave permission for Irsay to move the Colts if he chose to do so. At the same time, Indianapolis and Phoenix were constructing new football stadiums. Baltimore felt the walls were closing in. So on March 27th, 1984, the Maryland Senate passed a bill that would allow the city of Baltimore to use eminent domain to seize the Baltimore Colts and its facilities away from Irsay. So at 10 p.m. on March 28th, the mayor of Indianapolis and another funny name haver, Mayor Hudnut, sent 15 trucks from Indiana shipping company Mayflower to Baltimore, and overnight they moved the Colts and all of their equipment to Indianapolis. All 15 shipping trucks were told to avoid Interstate 70 until getting to Pennsylvania, so they all took separate routes to avoid getting caught by the Maryland State Police. The next day, Maryland passed the eminent domain bill, but the Colts and all their assets had already moved to Indianapolis overnight. And as someone who grew up in Maryland, I can tell you the people there are still pretty bitter about this. You won't find any Mayflower shipping trucks in the state of Maryland. Go to Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Virginia. You'll see Mayflower on the highway. You will not see any in Maryland because no one there uses them to this day. But that's only the first half of the story of how Baltimore ended up getting the Ravens. So stick around for part 2.